So my question, and what people want to know, is what he is going to do.
I think he's going to do.
Just for example, 2 days ago, he called for investigations into anyone spreading rumors.
I think he's going to secure the border. I think he's going to get rid of this crazy inflation that's hurting middle class and working class families, hurting our economy. I think he's going to get back to common sense energy policy. I think he's going to focus on protecting the First Amendment. When you tell people, oh, you're fascist, racist, deplorable garbage, they don't like that. And then when you use lawfare to go after their candidate, they don't like that either. Well, that's why they came out. So on top of the economy, on top of the price of gas, on top of the inflation, that's why they voted for President Trump.
We're out of time.
Mainstream liberal media continues to spin off into the darkness as they're forced to accept reality. CNN is not taking it well, and that includes the likes of Dana Bash. Now, the worst part for her is that she's talking to both sides of the aisle. She's trying to gaslight the Republicans and hoping that Democrats join her side of the story. However, it's not working. And it's crystal clear that these left-leaning networks are still hung up on the lies that have been spread throughout this presidential race. It's exactly the same reason as to why Dana tried so hard to get Congressman Jordan in a gotcha moment. But of course, it never came.
Trump has repeatedly threatened to prosecute Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Liz Cheney, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, General Mark Milley, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, New York AG Letitia James, and that's just some of the people he has talked about. Do you support him using the Justice Department to go after the people who disagree?
He didn't do it his first term. What I support is stopping.
Right, but this is a second term.
What I support is stopping this lawfare, stopping this political targeting, political cases. We all know the Fonnie Willis case, the Alvin Bragg case, and the Jack Smith cases were all driven by politics. The American people understood it. That's why they had this overwhelming win. One of the reasons that this overwhelming win for President Trump. So I'm against the retribution. I'm against the Justice Department saying if you're a mom and dad showing up at a school board meeting, we're going to investigate you. I'm against the FBI putting together a memorandum at the Richmond field office which said if you're a pro-life Catholic, you're an extremist.
So I just want to...
We want all that to stop.
I just want to put a button on this. So what you are saying is that all of the times that President Trump said so many things about people that he promised that he would go after them and prosecute them, you were going to encourage him not to do that?
Well, all I know is what he didn't do.
I know, but we're talking about
lock her up. You know, he's talking about his opponent in 2016, Secretary Clinton, talked about lock her up. He didn't do that. He didn't go. But the Democrats went after him.
I know, but
Now I get it. I mean, these people are afraid. Trump had all the opportunities to go after Hillary Clinton, but he didn't. Even though he famously had a mic drop moment with him saying that he'd put her in jail if elected, which shows that the president is not out for revenge. He could have easily gone after political rivals during his term, but he didn't. And this idea that he would do it in his second term is baseless. Now, what Dana Bash is doing here is called projecting. It's the left that has politically prosecuted Donald Trump. It's the left that has targeted him legally right as he announced his presidential run. She's trying so hard just to make him look like this vengeful politician. But as far as we know, guys, the only anger that we've seen from him were mean tweets. Yet she wants this entire narrative that was built in the past to be brought to the future, which is typical Democrat gaslighting. Something that Jim Jordan wasn't having at all. Watch.
Forward. Since then, he has said many times.
I don't think any of that's going to happen because we're the party who's against political prosecution. We're the party who's against going after your opponents using lawfare. In fact, I think this is one of the issues that the
So it was just a campaign rhetoric? It wasn't real?
Well, I think he's pointing out what's going on. The retribution. Actually, Liz Cheney on January 6th went after President Trump, said things that weren't accurate, I think, in their report. The other individuals he's talked about have been part of this retribution going after President Trump. Never forget, it started clear back before he was in office. They spied on his campaign in 2016.
But I am not talking about...
for 8 years, they've been going after President
Trump. He won.
He sure did. He won big.
That smirk on Jordan was exactly what Dana Bash didn't want to see. And let's be clear, guys. Candidates say all kinds of things when they're campaigning. They do that to get our votes. And like he said, President Donald Trump talked about putting Hillary Clinton in jail, something that he never did, even though Clinton kept calling him an illegitimate president.
Another alarming obliteration of presidential and democratic norms.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president who got illegitimate foreign help. He knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
I know that he knows that this wasn't on the level.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he knows he didn't.
He knows he's an illegitimate president. I do think that he knows that he's an illegitimate president.
So in terms of track record, Trump hasn't gone after his rivals after winning. The same cannot be said for the left, though. And speaking of the left, Dana Bash was also left speechless when she talked to Bernie Sanders. Did you guys catch that one? The senators made waves recently after criticizing the Democratic Party, basically saying the truth out loud, something that those within the far left were not happy with. Watch.
I want to start with the scathing response that you gave after the Democrats lost, Kamala Harris lost pretty big. You said the Democrats abandoned the working class. The chairman of the DNC called it straight up BS and said Joe Biden is the most pro-worker president of my lifetime. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi said she disagreed with you. She added, quote, Bernie Sanders has not won. Do you stand by what you said?
Oh, absolutely. Look, Joe Biden is a friend of mine. I've been proud to work with him on an agenda which has been very strongly in favor of the working class. Biden promised to be the most progressive president since FDR. In many ways, on domestic issues, I think he kept his word. But here is the reality. The working class of this country is angry, and they have a reason to be angry. We are living in an economy today, Donna, where the people on top are doing phenomenally well, while 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. 25% of elderly people are trying to get by on $15,000 a year or less. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, and parents all over this country worry that their kids may have a lower standard of living than they do. That is the economic reality.
When even Bernie Sanders is going against his own party, you know it's over. Which brings me to Dana Bash from CNN completely losing her mind as Jim Jordan asked a very important question. There is a huge difference in voter count when you look back on 2020. So where did all those Democrats go? Watch.
There were all kinds of concerns with how the 2020 election was carried out. But
there was absolutely
the biggest question Democrats need to be asking, what happened to the 10 million voters that Joe Biden got that didn't come out for Kamala Harris? A bunch of them, President Trump's numbers were right up where they were in 2020, but the Democrats were much lower. I think it's because they had no vision, no record to run on, and they just wanted to call everyone names.
You got to ask, did voters just choose not to vote? Or did those voters just not even exist in the first place? But of course, they can make the case that mail-in votes were very popular during this time. Okay, sure, whatever. But you can see where Dana Bash clearly loses the conversation. She can't even get a word in because she knows that there's no way to explain 2020 without sounding ominous. It's also at a point where Dana Bash pretty much ends the interview. And then, of course, there's a Kamala Harris staffer that's calling on Joe Biden to quit, to resign in order for Kamala Harris to be able to be president for a few weeks. It's kind of crazy. Can you imagine Joe Biden losing his job just to allow Kamala Harris to play kind of like playing, like Halloween? We just play dress up and let's just be president of the United States for the last couple of months and weeks. But this is actually being suggested here. Take a listen.
We're now 71 days from Trump taking the oath of office. What is the most important thing that everybody is looking for? That is my question. I'll start with you.
Joe Biden has been a phenomenal president. He's lived up to so many of the promises he's made. There's one promise left that he could fulfill, being a transitional figure. He could resign the presidency in the next 30 days, make Kamala Harris the president of the United States. Whoa. He would absolve her from being able to, from having to oversee the January 6th transition, right, of her own defeat. And it would make sure that it would dominate the news at a point where Democrats have to learn drama and transparency and doing things that the public want to see is the time. This is the moment for us to change the entire perspective of how Democrats.
Okay, this is not.
Wow, like is this? What is it? What is it with Democrats and their need for attention, like to stir up drama? Like, what is it with that, guys? Now, here's the other thing. So, Joe Biden would literally have to lose his job. They've already stolen his attempt to campaign for to run for re-election. They've already, the coup has already played its course, and they've already stolen that opportunity for Joe Biden, which, by the way, Joe Biden won the nomination. Kamala Harris didn't get a single vote for the nomination, okay? So not only have they stolen Joe Biden's attempt to reelect him or run for reelection for the presidential campaign, but now they're trying to basically force Joe out prematurely. Can you believe this, guys? They're now trying to get Joe Biden to resign, effectively make this guy lose his job so that Kamala Harris can be the first black woman president of the United States. And I think that there's a lot of pushback on this. And this guy is dead serious. You guys see this guy's facial expression, right? You hear his demeanor and his tone. He's dead serious about this request to get Joe Biden to step down. And they also want to bring Liz Cheney into the building. They want to bring Liz Cheney in. The argument here is that they want to make sure that they want to pave the way and make it so it's easier for a woman to become president in the future, at least from the Democratic Party. I think that this is the silliest idea I've ever heard personally. Please, guys, what do you guys think about this? Is this even legal? Is this I feel like they're throwing the Constitution in the trash. This is why we need Donald Trump in office, guys. But let's hear more from this guy here, this Kamala Harris staffer.
Point where Democrats have to learn drama and transparency and doing things that the public want to see is the time. This is the moment for us to change the entire perspective of how Democrats.
Okay, this has now jumped from an internet meme to a Sunday morning show.
Jamal's out here right now. Next season of House of Cards.
This is wild, guys, and he's dead serious. I mean, you've heard CNN's Dana Bash. I mean, like, he is dead serious about this. She said, so Dana Bash says that he's jumped from an internet meme to a Sunday morning show. Dana Bash, ladies and gentlemen.
My voice, yes, was ignored, but tens of millions of Americans' voices were ignored. I encourage my colleagues, Democrats particularly, to get out into rural America and sit with people, listen to them, have a cup of coffee, and understand they're not racist, they're not bigots, they're not anti-Semites.
It's not just about the campaign. It's about what does the Democratic Party stand for.
The reason we didn't win ultimately is we didn't listen enough to people on the ground.
So some of the Democrats' harshest critics are fellow Democrats, reflecting on the millions of Americans turning away from the party as they grapple with their election defeat. Rich Edson's tracking all that. He's live in Washington, D.C. There was a lot to say on Sunday, and they said it, Rich.
Yeah, they did, Bill. Democrats say they know there's a problem. They're just all over the map on how to fix it. Some say the party needs a much different approach.
Hills to overcome. The fact that her campaign started, in the middle of the summer, obviously it would have been better had that not been the case. Now, we can't go back and change history. We can't go back and change President Biden's mind as to whether he should have launched a re-election effort.
Wow. So now it's Joe Biden's fault. It's Joe Biden's fault that Kamala Harris lost the election. They should have given Joe Biden should have given Kamala Harris a longer runway to campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me know. Is it Joe Biden's fault? Do you guys agree with this logic?
Speaker Nancy Pelosi told the New York Times she thought there'd be an open primary to replace Biden, and had he stepped aside sooner, there may have been other candidates. Pelosi also clapped back at Senator Bernie Sanders, telling the Times she doesn't respect Sanders saying that the Democratic Party has abandoned working-class families. Sanders wants a more progressive party. He says it should come as no surprise that a Democratic Party that abandoned the working class found the working class abandoned them.
Wow. So the blame game continues, ladies and gentlemen. Another one that takes the cake was CNN's Van Jones saying that people are hurting because of the results. Watch.
They were hoping that maybe this time, one of their own could be seen as worthy. And once again, they're facing rejection. And that hurts. They thought tomorrow morning they're going to walk out with their shoulders back a little bit, maybe able to breathe for the first time and feel like they belong someplace. They did everything that they knew how to do. And it's going to be harder than it should be tomorrow for them to hold their heads up. And they're not the only people who are hurting tonight. If you're a parent of a trans kid, your child's face was used as a springboard to power for somebody. That doesn't feel good. There are going to be people tomorrow, we're going to be handing clothes at the dry cleaners to people who don't have papers. There are going to be people who are going to be cleaning your teeth tomorrow who don't have papers. And they're terrified tonight. And so it's easy to blow this off. Oh, look at the elites. They're going to get their comeuppance. It's not the elite that's going to pay the price. It's people who woke up this morning with a dream and are going to bed with a nightmare.
Now, seriously, guys, we're talking about nightmares now. The only nightmare I'm seeing right now is the nightmare America just woke up from, which is the Biden-Harris struggle bus administration. Am I right, guys? He mentioned the people who are not a part of anybody's elite. African-American women who know a little bit about being talked down to, who know a little bit about having their economic dreams crushed, who try to dream big over the past couple of months, and tonight they're trading in a lot of hope for a lot of hurt. He said that once again they're facing rejection. But I don't know, guys. Aren't these black women that they're talking about a part of the majority of America that actually voted for Trump? So yeah, I honestly don't think that they're hurting at all. In fact, the people I know, they're celebrating getting out from under the thumb of Democratic rule. Do you guys agree, guys? The American people was loud and clear when they said that we want Trump. But do they listen? No, instead they lecture us like we don't know what's good for us. You guys remember Obama talking down to black men voters? Well, here's CNN host Jim Acosta lecturing Latino Trump supporters for what he called voting against their own self-interests by backing President-elect Donald Trump in the 2024 election. Watch.
A lot of folks are wondering, why would Latinos vote for Donald Trump if that means he might deport abuela? He might deport members of their household. As you know, lots of Latino families in this country are of mixed status. And, you know, a lot of folks are asking on the Democratic side, why would they do this to themselves? Do you want to see mass deportations?
So the first thing that we need to do is close the border. More than 10 million people illegally entered the country. They have to be deportation. So there is no other way around. They have to be deportation. They have to be
deportation
we
camps.
have to respect the laws.
Do you want
I'm
to
not
see
saying deportation camps.
Do you want to see people in camps rounded up and put in camps? Isn't that what you voted for? Isn't that what you voted for?
They are in camps now. More than 300,000 children are missing. So they're in camps now.
Lulu, I mean, you know, one of the things that I think we need to talk about is whether or not, you know, folks just had the wool pulled over their eyes. And maybe they were voting on economic issues, but at the end of the day, maybe voting against their own self-interest.
So they're basically saying that we got the wool pulled over our eyes while they're the ones that never learn. Seriously, guys, these are the people who call Trump supporters stupid, garbage, deplorables, and when they lose, they blame us. Typical liberal media, right? Now, of course, when all else fails, there's always the standard fallback for them. Blame racism and sexism.
Ignore there is still a lot of racism and gender bias in this country. And I think for us to ignore that and not try to bring that front and center so we can heal that would mean that we would end up in the same place. Kamala Harris is a woman of color in an interracial marriage, running as a woman to be the head of state. That is something a lot of Americans are not ready to deal with.
I'm surprised at the result, but I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country. Mm-hmm. And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment in this country.
Pointing back to 2016, sexism, I'm going to say also racism and bias had to have played a role.
Now, let me state the obvious. One person is a woman. And this now makes Trump 2 for 2 in beating out a woman to become our president. Let me just ask this simply. It could be tough to answer. Is this country not ready for a woman to become president?
If she were a 6'4" white man from Arkansas or from, Florida, and she ran a good middle-of-the-road campaign talking about reaching out, do you think she would be losing by that much? If she could like chew tobacco and carry a shotgun and talk about football and be a guy's guy, I mean, you tell me.
There are levels of sexism and racism that clearly a lot of people in this country are willing to tolerate.
Let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely blunt about it. There were appeals to racism in this campaign, and there is racial bias in this country, and there is sexism in this country. And anybody who thinks that that did not in any way impact on the outcome of this race is wrong. I'm not saying that was the main reason that Kamala Harris lost and Donald Trump won it.
I think that we've got to be honest. Among Hispanic men and black men, there's a lot of misogyny. And I think that we've got to deal with the reality that he appealed to this whole false macho thing that some black men and some Latino men went for.
I mean, if they want to talk about sexism and racism, why don't they take a look at the news outlets calling white women who voted for Trump uneducated? How about that? Maybe that's the kind of thing that really caused Harris's loss in the polls, don't you think? MSNBC host Al Sharpton said that Kamala Harris is a woman of color in an interracial marriage, running as a woman to be head of the state. And according to him, that is something that a lot of Americans are not ready to deal with. Really? When will they realize that it's not even about that? It's about the economy. It's about border security. It's about foreign policy. Those are what most Americans voted for under all those issues. Kamala, she just came up short. The proof is in the pudding, you guys. And guess what? That pudding is now showing that President-elect Trump has officially won Arizona, giving him 11 more electoral votes for a total landslide result of 312 electoral votes. His opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, only garnered 226 electoral votes. And regardless of what mainstream media is trying to feed the American people, it couldn't be any clearer. Trump's Arizona pickup ends the battle for swing states in the 2024 presidential election. In addition to Arizona, he picked up all the electoral votes in all the other swing states: North Carolina, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Georgia, and of course, the crown jewel, Pennsylvania. When Trump won Pennsylvania, seriously guys, I knew it was game time. It was game, set, and match for our president-elect, guys. And now Arizona, President Biden won the Grand Canyon state by less than 1/2% back in 2020's election, and the results in the key area of Maricopa County, they were very slim, with Biden beating Donald Trump by 2%. Before Biden won Arizona in 2020, Republicans had carried the state every year since 1996. Well, now the good people of Arizona, they woke up and they chose to vote on the most highly important issue in their state, which shares a border with Mexico. As one Phoenix voter told Fox News, we have to have swifter incarceration at the border. And if there's a suspicion that they're going to commit a crime, lock them up. Arizona is the home of a higher population of Hispanic voters than the rest of the country, but even they showed signs of shifting toward Trump leading up to the election. Now, I gotta say, mainstream media is shaking right now, which reminds me of The View. You know that show that used to love President Trump? Yeah, they're over there shouting at each other because they're looking for someone to blame. Now, I covered this in a previous video, guys. You definitely got to watch that one after this one, but as always, appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll catch you guys next time. Well, guys, the great wealth transfer is in full effect. And, you know, whether it's Donald Trump that ends up winning the election or if it's Kamala Harris, oh, God, we're in a world of a pickle, as my grandfather would say. Our freedoms are being stolen, guys. Credit card companies are out to get us. And if you don't understand the game, well, you end up getting played by the game. Now, if you're anything like me, guys, you know, you were probably out of shape, maybe in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and just feeling like the system is just completely taking advantage of you. I remember for a long time, I could rarely ever get any time to spend with my wife. And it's kind of funny because where I used to work with a lot of married men. And a lot of those married men would always complain about their spouses as if they really just didn't even like their spouses, which is sounding like a pretty horrible situation. But that was the case for many of them. They didn't like who they were married to. But I was different. Anyway, through trial and error and through a lot of pain, I figured out how to gain freedom and also lose a lot of weight and actually get in shape. And guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, that was a game changer. To no longer be living paycheck to paycheck, figuring out how to get the credit cards to pay me, the power of a strong credit score. I pay thousands of dollars less per year for the same house as my neighbor just because my credit is better than his is. And this is not to brag. I mean, but this is the truth. The banks are literally taking advantage of the poor. It's like the people who can least afford it, they're charging the poor what is like unofficially called a poor tax or a tax on the poor. I mean, I'm now at a point where, you know, like, number one, I don't pay for credit cards. In fact, credit card companies pay me to use their cards. And I figured out how to build a lifestyle that is just ultimately very, very healthy. I lost a tremendous amount of weight and I put on a lot of muscle. But when I was struggling, I wish I knew people who knew these things. So anyway, I decided to create a community of like-minded people who are also interested, just like me, in living better. So if you guys want to join my community, it's called the Liberty Pursuit Network. It is brand new. Come on over. I'd love to have you guys and join like like-minded people, be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now.